Hi there. In this video I want to show you how to install MySQL on a Windows machine. If you're just learning MySQL or if you're using it as a developer, you'll need to install it on your machine, and there are a couple different ways. There's the automated installation for Windows, and there's also a manual installation that you can do. And you can see the downloads page here. We're going to scroll down to the community downloads. If you're just learning it, again, the MySQL Community Edition is probably the one you want. It's free under the General Public License, so we'll just click on that. And again, we'll click on MySQL Community Server. And here we have the MySQL installer for Windows. Let's go to the download page. And let's take a quick look at the information page first. You can see some of the products that comes with the automated install. You've got the server itself, of course. You've got connectors to various languages like .NET. You have sample models and MySQL Workbench, which is a very handy graphical environment so you don't have to work at the command line all the time. You have the sample databases and a few other things that come in very handy for different operations. So let's go back to the installer, and I'm installing this on Windows 10 Professional, just for your information. And we'll go ahead and download the full installer. You have both the offline install and the web installer. I'm going to use the full installer. That's an MSI file that it's going to download. It'll ask you if you want to set up an account with Oracle, or you can just go ahead and say, just start my download. And as you can see, it's offering to download it, so we'll click save. Okay, so that's downloaded. Let's go ahead and open that MSI file. And that might take just a moment. And once it opens, you'll notice that it gives you a few options for the configuration. You have the developer default, which just installs some of the basic packages, some of the basic products that you might need as a developer. You have the full install, which will install everything. And you can do custom if you want. I'm going to go ahead and do custom just so we can see some of the different stuff that it offers. And let's go ahead and click on MySQL Server. And this is MySQL Server 8.0.19, so we'll go ahead and add that. Applications, I want Workbench. I'll probably add MySQL for Visual Studio. And I'll add the connector for .NET. As well as the documentation and the sample databases. Go ahead and click Next, and then execute. This will probably take a little bit of time. I'll fast forward through a bit of it. Okay, so that's completed installing those items. Let's go ahead and click Next, and it's going to do some configuration now. So again, click Next. I'll leave this as a standalone MySQL server. It's not part of a cluster. And I'll leave the configuration type as a development computer. The connectivity is going to be under TCP/IP, and that's port 3306. That's the standard port under which many databases listen for communications. Go ahead and click Next. Going to go ahead and use the strong password encryption for authentication. And let's go ahead and set a root password. The MySQL root account is the main administrator account. You want to create a strong password for that and make sure you record it somewhere secure so you don't forget it. For this one, since it's just a test machine, I'm going to use something simple, but really use a strong password under normal conditions. Yeah, I know it's a weak password. For this case, that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add a user. Username Andrew. That's going to be a DB admin. And MySQL authentication. I'll use the same password for this one. And let's correct the name spelling on that name. And click Next. Now you can configure MySQL Server as a Windows service so that it starts up with Windows. And I think I'll leave that as it is for this one. You can also start it manually if you want, but this time I'll leave it as a Windows service. Windows service name is going to be MySQL 80, and it's going to run under a standard system account. That's fine. And click Next. And let's execute that. And this might take a few moments. Okay, so that finished. Let's click Finish. And Next. And it's going to try to connect to the server. And check. Connection succeeded. That's good. Next. And it's going to do a little bit more configuration, so we'll say execute. And the configuration was successful. We'll go ahead and say finish. And it seems to need to do a bit more configuration on these items. So let's say next. Oh, it's complete. Okay. And this is offering to start MySQL Workbench. That's fine. Finish. Okay, so it started MySQL Workbench and it's seeing the local instance. So let's go ahead and click on this. Type in my password. You can actually save the password in the vault. Go ahead and do that. And it's complete. We have the sample databases here, Sakila and World, and everything's set up. And if we go to the Windows menu, we see that it's added that to the Windows menu along with Workbench. You can open the command line client. And go to the MySQL monitor. And see all the databases there. And so that's taken care of. Everything's set up. Exit out of that. And just for the heck of it, let's see how this is connecting. Okay, that is connecting through the root account, which is fine. Do another test connection. Successfully made the connection. So we now have MySQL all set up. Another way to install MySQL is the manual installation. Maybe you just need MySQL itself. Maybe you want to change the location. Maybe you want to put it on a flash drive. Maybe you just need a quick MySQL installation that you can play around with, do some work with, and then just delete as you need it without making a bunch of changes to Windows. For that, you want to do a manual installation. And for that, we come back to the Downloads page. And you can see here we have the Windows zip archive for download, and I've already downloaded it here, so let me just go to my downloads folder, and you can see here where I downloaded it, and I'll just open this up, copy this, and I'll just paste it right into the C drive, and that will take just a second or two. And I'll go ahead and rename that as the MySQL directory. And the next thing we want to do is create an options file. MySQL uses an options file called my.ini to specify certain paths, and you can create that in any text editor. So I'll just say new and text document. And we're going to start off with the MySQL group because this file is divided into groups based on the type of setting that's being specified. And then we'll define the base directory. That's where MySQL actually resides. Then the data directory, which is where MySQL will be storing the data or the database files, and just save that. Rename that as an INI file. And the next thing that you probably want to do is set the path statement. Once you have MySQL installed on the machine, you want to add it to the environment variable. And in Windows 10, you go to the control panel, you go to System Properties, and you can see it has a path statement for both the user and the system. So I've already gone ahead and added it to the system's path variable, both MySQL and the bin directory where all the programs are stored. So we'll close that. And close that. So now we have the MySQL directory, and what we need to do is initialize the data directory. This is where the data directory is actually created and other settings are initialized. So let's go ahead and open a command window here, or in my case PowerShell, and I'm going to type out the MySQL initialize console. Now I put initialize here and I'm about to change it. What this will do, if I run this with initialize, it's going to actually assign a random password to the root MySQL user, the main administrative user. I don't want it to do that. I want to set the password myself, so I'm going to add insecure. So the initialize insecure option will leave that password blank, and I can set it later on. And console will direct MySQL to direct the output to the console so we can see what's going on. And I'll just go ahead and run that now, and let's see what happens. And that should take just a few moments. As you can see, it's acknowledging that the root user is being created with an empty password, and it seems to have finished. So let's take a look at the directory. It's got the data directory there now, and it seems to have created everything. Didn't give me quite as much output as I anticipated, but we seem to have everything here. So the next thing we want to do is actually start the server. MySQL runs as a server process, so you actually have to start the process again with the MySQL command. So we'll say MySQL and again we'll direct everything to the console. And that's actually how it should look. This window is going to remain open as long as the database is running, and it says plugin ready for connections. So we're ready to go. And what we can do is open another window, open PowerShell window here, and run MySQL itself. So I'm telling you to use the root user with the -u switch, says user root, and ask for a password. It's asking for a password. We don't have one yet, so I'm just going to hit enter. And we're in. So MySQL is actually set up right now. Now there's one or two more things to do. The next thing we want to do is secure this instance of MySQL. Let me go ahead and close this down. And I'm going to run the MySQL secure installation script. This is actually a script that will carry out a number of actions. Each one of these you could do on your own, but this script puts it all in one place, and it will take a number of steps to actually secure your new MySQL server. So let's start that off. Okay, so the new scripts as of version 8 has a new password validation component. You can test passwords and require a certain complexity depending on what you prefer for your system. I'm going to say yes, just so you can see what this looks like. And it gives you 3 levels of validation policy. You can have low, where it just requires 8 characters or more. You can have medium, where it requires certain special characters, and strong, where it has special characters in dictionary file. Presumably, I would suppose that eliminates recognizable words. So I'm going to say 0 for low for this one. Okay, now it's asking for a password for the root user, and since I have to have 8 characters, here we go. And it's actually rating the password based on its estimated strength. And yes, I want to use that password. Now it's asking if I want to remove the anonymous user, which I do. The anonymous user lets anybody log in without having an account, so let's get rid of that. And it's asking to restrict the locations from which the root user can log in, so I will disable remote logins for root. And it's asking to remove the test database, which gives everybody access. Yes, I will do that. And then it wants to reload the privilege tables to make sure everything takes effect right now. So yes. So now the MySQL server is secured, and we can move on. We can go back to the console, test that new password, and it worked. So we're in, and MySQL is all set up. Now you might still want to use MySQL Workbench in order to work with your MySQL installation or others. So you can still install that separately if you like. Bring this back to the page, and from the community downloads you would just select MySQL Workbench and you could install that. So you would have it there, and to connect you can just create a new connection from SQL Workbench, and in this one I've already created a connection to the new MySQL installation that I just created, and as usual it's just localhost root and port 3306, and if we test the connection, it successfully made the connection. Now when you're done working with a manual installation of SQL Server, Let's go ahead and close this. We would come back to the window where we started MySQL D and just use Control-C a couple times to shut it down. And then the server is done. The server is shut down. And if we try to, let's try to log in again, see what happens. And it's saying cannot connect to MySQL because the server is not running. So you would actually have to run MySQL D again in order to start the server if you want to work with it. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, I hope you'll take a moment to like and subscribe. You can also see more on my website at comosoftware.com. Have a great day.